Stand Up.
From a defabricated garden shed in Rockland County, New York, USA, this is Stand Up with Pete Dominick. On today's episode, how to get your faithful Labrador Retriever to stop biting your skin tags.
Oh, dear.
And now, the podcast host who has no problem with such things because his skin is mildly prepubescent, Pete Dominick!
Yes, Pico, thank you for another amazing introduction. And it's funny you are talking about my skin because it's all itchy. I got a new shirt, a new flannel shirt. I think that's why, but my palms are itchy and my armpits and my tum-tum is all itchy. I've been itching myself all night. It's like you always know what's going on with me, Pete, and I am so grateful for it. Hello, friends. Sorry for the skin talk here at the top. I'm very excited for you to hear my interviews with both Glenn Kirschner and Wajahat Ali, both of them joining me on the show. Awesome conversations with the Kirsch and Waj. I think you'll really like them. Quick apology to paid subscribers who did not get the scheduled email because I scheduled it for the wrong day. I scheduled the email to go out, and then it didn't go out because I had the wrong day on it. So sorry about that. You didn't get your vitamin N early in the morning. And keep that vitamin N going. Those are pictures of nature that prove that you're getting out there, sharing them with us and sharing them with me, and I get to share them with everybody else. Lots of people sending me photos over Thanksgiving week because I was begging for them, but I can never have enough, and they make me so happy. And Cindy, thank you for yours. Yours will be featured in today's subscriber email. Tonight, we will be hanging out. I'm going to schedule it for 9 o'clock because I'm going to a private talk that I'll tell you about with a civil rights legend, but it's like secret and private, and I'm very excited for it, but Ava and I are going to it, and it's local, but I'm not sure what time we're going to be back. Tonight's hangout, 9 p.m., unless I get back earlier, and I'll start it earlier. Either way, my favorite historian, Kenneth C. Davis, is scheduled to join us. We'll give away a few of his new books, so come on by to the hangout tonight if you're a subscriber. If you're not, sign up now. Go to standupwithpete.com and sign up for a paid subscription right now because this podcast is ad-free and I can't do it without your subscription. So sign up now. Also, hang out with us on Saturday to watch the World Cup at 9 a.m. And now a few headlines, a couple things I'll play for you, and we will get right to my guests. But the economy headlines. U.S. gas prices plunge toward $3 a gallon as demand drops worldwide. The price of gas back to where it was before Russia invaded Ukraine. How about that? Fascinating story. What are you paying for a gallon of gas? Or maybe you're plugging your car in these days. And speaking of economic news, the U.S. economy's growth was stronger than expected in the third quarter, apparently. Showed GDP rose by an annualized rate of 2.9%. So maybe there won't be a recession? Who knows? The Dow gained 400 points as optimism is growing after the Fed chief Jerome Powell signaled smaller rate hikes ahead. Those are your economic headlines. Unless you want to include this in economics and politics, the House voted to avert the rail strike, and they put a deal together, really, that they're imposing on these unions, the ones that were holding out. The first time in 30 years, Congress has intervened ahead of a potential rail strike following calls from President Joe Biden to do so. Really important story to read into, talk about. And why are they why do they only get one sick day? Why is that such a pivotal negotiation? I mean, I know it's hard to get coverage even on the choo-choo train, but I think I just belittled everybody that works in railroads. Sorry. Also, in political headlines, speaking of the House, in a show of unity, House Democrats elected Hakeem Jeffries the minority leader. He is the first black party leader in Congress, and they are preparing for a new generation of leadership, including Catherine Clark of Massachusetts as number 2 and Pete Aguilar of California, number 3. Speaker Nancy Pelosi will now be Speaker Emeritus. Apparently, they gave her a new title, an honorary title. Also, in political headlines, President Biden casts a little doubt on a 2024 run when supporters started chanting 2024 or something, and he was basically like, slow down there, God love you, slow down. So maybe they had a serious talk over the Biden's Thanksgiving table. And in media headlines, CNN is starting to lay off hundreds of employees, targeting on-air contributors first. And so some of my friends might be out of a job concerned about that, but they'll all be okay, just like I was, right? Also, NPR announced a hiring freeze, so bad news for folks working in corporate media. And a sports headline, a superstar soccer player for the U.S. soccer team, Christian Pulisic, didn't injure his dick. So stop saying that. It was a pelvic contusion. He got the wind knocked out of him. He'll be back on Saturday. So stop saying things about Christian Pulisic's penis. It's inappropriate, and he's a young legend. And so please, thank you. Stop doing that. Also, I read a headline. Who knows if this is true, but it sounds terrible, that a young man was shot in Iran for cheering that the Iranians lost and the U.S. won. Everybody was beeping their horns, and apparently a young man lost his life as a result, which is a pretty upsetting story to come out of Iran. Unfortunately, not that surprising. And finally, in the science and exploration lead, I'll call it, what am I, Jay Tapper over here? There's a volcano erupting in Hawaii, and I am consigned to the fact that I will die without seeing a volcanic eruption in person, because I don't want to die for wanting to see a volcanic eruption in person. You weirdos. Who the hell's pulling? They're having some issues because people are like pulling their cars aside the road and watching a volcano erupt, and it's dangerous. Don't do that. And don't chase tornadoes either, for the sake of science. And finally, speaking of science, on flight day 13, the NASA Artemis, am I saying that right, mission, reached its maximum distance from Earth, 268,563 miles away from home. Orion has now traveled farther than any other spacecraft designed to carry humans to deep space and safely return them to Earth. So, fascinating story there. All right, now time for a few clips. I got a few clips for you. First of all, I thought this is interesting. Whenever Anita Hill is giving the interview talking, I want to listen. She sat down with Chris Wallace over at CNN, and here's about a minute and a half of their conversation. If you want to watch all of it, go to CNN.com.
In this last term of the Supreme Court, Justice Thomas provided the fifth vote to overturn Roe v. Wade and take back a woman's right to abortion. Does that decision by him make it even harder for you to reconcile Justice Thomas and his years on the court?
I think if you read Thomas's opinion in the Dobbs case, you will find that he wants to start looking at contraception. He wants to look at, perhaps the whole idea of protecting people based on gender identity. I think this is where we are in the country. And yes, Thomas seems to be out in front with it, but he's not the only one. And the votes are there to move us in that direction.
And what do you make of the fact that we've now learned that Jenny Thomas has been deeply involved, both with the Trump White House and with several states, with trying to overturn the 2020 election?
I think we need to know everything, and we don't know everything about that involvement. I think everybody who has been involved with trying to turn over that election really has put all of us at risk, but more particularly put our democracy at risk. And so, yes, that should be fully investigated. And the people who are found to be involved ought to be held accountable. And it doesn't matter who they are or who they're married to.
There you go. Anita Hill on CNN talking to Chris Wallace. I thought that was very interesting. Now let's go over to CNN, where Casey Hunt was talking to congressional correspondent Caitlin Polance, who broke this news you might have missed yesterday.
Caitlin, you've also learned that House Democrats now have Donald Trump's tax returns?
They do indeed. We just got confirmation a few minutes ago from the Treasury Department that the Treasury Department complied with a court order last week. The Supreme Court basically said, no, we're not going to step in. We are going to agree with other courts that all sided with House Democrats. House Democrats have been trying for years now, Casey, to get access to Trump financial details in many different ways. By my count, there's been maybe 6 different or more different ways that they've tried. This one was a very clean request that the House Ways and Means Committee made in 2019. What they asked for was 6 years of Trump's tax returns, including the years he served as president. His personal returns, also returns around 8 of his different business entities. And the courts, Trump was trying in court to block this. The courts ultimately all said, no, the House has this power. And those tax returns did go from the IRS to the House Ways and Means Committee. We're going to have to watch and see what the House Ways and Means Committee does next.
All right, now that is news, big news, that Democrats now have access to Trump's taxes. What will we learn, if anything? And other big news, if you care about Native Americans, and I do, the Biden-Harris administration announced new actions to support Indian country and Native communities ahead of the administration's second Tribal Nations Summit. Here is President Biden yesterday making some major announcements while hosting the second Tribal Nations Summit of his administration to help foster nation-to-nation relationships and provide tribal leaders with an opportunity to engage directly with senior administration officials. Several Native American leaders in the audience here as tribal leaders gather in Washington at the Department of the Interior. And here is your president.
Made a commitment my administration would prioritize respect nation-to-nation relations. I'm make sure that all of you know there are tribal communities at risk of being washed away by superstorms, rising sea levels, wildfires raging, blown over literally several thousand acres, storms and fires set west in particular, and also down in the southwest. Devastating. That's why today I'm announcing a $135 million commitment to help 11 tribal communities from Maine, Louisiana, Arizona, Washington State, and Alaska to move, in some cases, their entire communities back to safer ground. Pay for that. We've also requested $9.1 billion, billion dollars for the Indian Health Services. We've asked Congress for the first time ever to make that funding mandatory part of the federal budget. My administration listened. We heard you. We're implementing many of the changes you asked for. Today, I signed a new presidential memorandum that improves consultation between the federal government and tribal nations based on key principles. Consultation has to be a two-way, nation-to-nation exchange of information. Well, I'll tell you what, no one's ever done as much as the president.
All right.
I am committed.
He is committed. There he is, touting the accomplishments of his administration, advocating for tribal nations here in the U.S. And now here he is answering that question about 2024. They started this chant. He's like, whoa, slow down.
My grandfather Finnegan would say, that's the Irish of it. Thank you all very much. I don't know about that. Thanks. Thank you. Finally. Let's keep it going, okay? Thank you.
Jeremy said, I don't know about that. He said, I don't know about that. That's breaking news, folks. It really was. People were talking about that yesterday, that little, I don't know about that. So we will soon find out, I'm sure. All right, 2 more clips I want to share with you. And this first one is from Fox News, where a Fox News reporter confronted Senator Elizabeth Warren about how she's being mean to Elon Musk. We're hearing a lot of that. Stop being mean to Elon Musk.
Our own Hillary Vaughn just had this exchange with Senator Elizabeth Warren. And it's interesting. Listen.
Republicans say that Democrats are picking on Elon Musk.
Elon Musk is doing just fine.
But do you think that users have a right to freedom of speech, even if what they're saying is wrong or offensive?
I think that one human being should not decide how millions of people communicate with each other. One human being should not be able to go into a dark room by himself and decide, oh, that person gets heard from, that person doesn't. That's not how it should work.
All right, Fox News' Hillary Vaughn, way out of her league, trying to confront Elizabeth Warren, if you ask me at least. And finally, here is a 2-minute montage that Comedy Central's The Daily Show put together that basically threads white supremacist anti-Semite Nick Fuentes in with Fox News personalities, Donald Trump, and others. And they put this out on social media with the caption, "Everyone agrees Nick Fuentes should not be having dinner with Trump. He should have a show on Fox News." So I thought this was a really great edit. I think you'll recognize most of these voices. Tough to take, but a powerful 2 minutes showing exactly what we're up against in terms of Fox News not being much different than the most virulent white supremacists and anti-Semites in the country.
You know, they say about America, they say diversity is our strength.
How precisely is diversity our strength?
You got to recognize the fact that this is a godless country. I hate it.
You're right. They're godless. That is exactly right. I never talk like that, but it's true.
Black people are violent. You know,
they have chaos and violence in their communities.
Send the military into these black neighborhoods, make the streets safe. They'll complain about it. It doesn't matter.
We should send in the troops if necessary to restore order.
Enough with the Jim Crow stuff. Who cares? Oh, to drink out of a different water fountain. Big fucking deal.
Oh, the legacy of Jim Crow. That was 67 years ago. It is ancient history now.
Russia. Can we give a round of applause for Russia?
And why shouldn't I root for Russia,
because
which I am?
The fundamentals of our worldview, a society where boys and girls get married as teenagers and start having kids.
We need these ladies to get married. And it's time to fall in love and just settle down. Guys, go put a ring on it.
And they have big families and a high birth rate.
We have to do something to increase our birth rate, or the vacuum that's created will be filled by people that don't believe in our values.
We live in a big Middle Eastern bazaar. We're a big fucking Middle Eastern bazaar with people sitting on blankets and selling cockroaches on sticks.
We have a moral obligation to admit the world's poor, they tell us, even if it makes our own country poorer and dirtier and more divided.
And white people are done being bullied.
Discriminating against and denigrating white people.
Trump's got to get in there and never leave. Elect Trump one more time and then stop having elections.
President for life, that sounds good. Maybe we're going to have to try it. President for life.
Oh, what a scary supercut from The Daily Show. Everyone agrees Nick Fuentes should not be having dinner with Trump. He should have his own show on Fox News. All those clips were from Fox News hosts and guests and commentary. And, of course, the president at a rally, all sharing basically the same ideology. So is there daylight between Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes? I say there isn't. All right. Well, that's all the news I've got for you. Now it's time to get to my guests. Coming up, Glenn Kirschner with the Kirschner Report here on Stand Up. But first, I caught up with my friend Wajahat Ali, who I haven't talked to in a few weeks. And we had a great conversation. We had fun talking about our experiences shopping in Costco. He talked about taking his family to Disney World for his daughter's Make-A-Wish. Of course, we talked about politics, the midterm elections, and everything else. I always love talking to Waj. He's a columnist at the Daily Beast. You can read him at Medium, follow him on Twitter and all social medias. Listen to him on Democracy-ish with Danielle Moody, and listen to him with me right now on Stand Up.
Apparently you care a lot about time because you got a new watch.
Oh man, so I don't know about you, but I feel like this is I have fully become the Pakistani uncle, or devolved, because I'm into watches now.
Yeah.
And I look at watches I can't afford, and I also like eat fiber and stretch and know something about good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. And I also am always cold, and I like to take naps. So I think it's done. I think it's over. The metamorphosis is complete.
Congratulations. You made it to middle age. You also were you were at Disney World?
Yeah, we went for our daughter's Make-A-Wish. As listeners of the show know, that my daughter had stage 4 cancer and a liver transplant 3 years ago. And then the pandemic happened. So we kind of delayed the Make-A-Wish, and we finally got Make-A-Wish, man. It's amazing. First of all, I'm like, oh, they gave our family free airplane tickets and hotel and Disneyland, like, for once. This is awesome, but it's even more than that. It's an entire program where, like, there's an entire village created for just kids who are enduring cancer and their families. And if you even stay in the village itself, it's amazing for a week. But then They gave us 2 days worth of Disneyland passes, 2 days of Universal Studios, SeaWorld, and like another one I'm forgetting. And they gave us like a credit card to like, they're like, whatever your kid wants, cotton candy, food. And everyone was kind. And all the people there who gave us free food every day and just like worked there were volunteers. And so it's an amazing program, I think, called Give Kids a Chance. I'm forgetting the name of it, that works with Make-A-Wish. But dude, I was there for like a week with my family. And let's just say I have enough theme parks in me for the next 5 years. I'm kind of
did you not enjoy it?
I don't know. I enjoyed it the most. Are you kidding me?
Oh.
And also, this is the best part. They give you a pass that lets you bypass all lines and go straight to the front.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I like being a child of immigrants. I use that for even rides I didn't care about. I'm like, this is never going to happen again. Let's just.
I'm so glad that your family had such a wonderful time after such a challenging time. And wow, that'll be memories for a lifetime. I loved those types of trips when the kids were little. Loved them.
Yeah, I mean, we enjoyed it, right? Like I don't take it for granted, first and foremost, because obviously our daughter is alive and so many don't make it. So every day is a win, right? With the challenges that all of us are facing, which are numerous, you sit there and you look at your daughter who's alive, and like, man, I got that. And then on top of it, like I said, the fact that something like Make-A-Wish even exists, I was happy enough that they even sent us to like Disneyland once. And then I found out that, oh no, it's all of this and then some. And then the fact that all these people were volunteering, I mean, for free, they were just helping these kids and they're just so kind. It was a good reminder, and it's an important reminder, that there are good people out there and people have the capacity and willingness to do good. And like I said, just sometimes we need to be invited and reminded that there's still a lot of good out there. And so I thought that was very important. And I think it was happening during the midterm election. Actually, it was right then when we were waiting for the election results. I was in Florida with the kiddos, on this wonderful trip that made the kids so happy. And, it's about perspective too, right? Like, man, at the end of the day, like with all the challenges that we have and the ones that we're going to face in this country where freaking Nick Fuentes and white nationalism is being mainstreamed, sometimes you just need to look at your family, and if they're healthy and they're happy and have smiles on their faces, you're like, that's the win for today. And that's enough.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of joy to be found in each and every day. I went to Costco today.
And that's joy for middle-aged men, man.
Yeah.
That's like Disneyland for middle-aged men.
Searched everywhere for joy there. And then I realized after being there about 20 minutes, I was like, I'm having anxiety. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I don't want to be here in this store with all of these people. Why am I here? I got to get out of here.
And Costco's the haven for middle-aged men.
No, it's. I mean, we could talk about the quality or the kind of products they have and what's going on in there. But where I live, it's jammed all hours of every day, and I couldn't be even in a giant. I didn't like it. I don't like that.
Oh man, I feel bad. You got to go to Costco during those hours where it's a little bit more relaxed and you can casually peruse. But I've been in those situations where Costco's packed and I get nerves. I get the anxiety too. And I'm like, it's too much. The free food isn't worth it. They're like, take more free food. You're like, it's not. I must go outside. I must get air. And they're like, how about $1 jumbo hot dog? You're like, damn you, Costco. You tempt me. 50-cent churro.
I give up.
I give up. I'll take the suffering. Damn my mental health.
Somebody should sketch that up as you're walking out. There's just people pushing those on you.
Yeah, you'll be like, pretzel, jumbo pretzel. Like, I just want to go outside. Lemonade, frozen lemonade.
I did peer into the Costco break room, and the diversity, at least in my community, of the employees there was hilarious. Like oldest to youngest, blackest to whitest, and everything in between. Male, female, it was crazy. Everybody works at Costco.
Were they happy? Usually Costco, compared to most of these places like Walmart, actually has better pro-worker policies. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, I think I hear good things about Costco. I don't know if they were happy. I think they would like a break. It was too busy for them. There was like no downtime, and everybody's angry.
To be fair, I actually have your experience at Costco. I get kind of overwhelmed. And when it's a rush, I'm like, it's just too much. And then my head hurts. But I remember my dad, Costco was my dad's thing. It still is. Like every 2 weeks, he would go to Costco. And I remember one day this was like years ago, right? Where just to help him out, I'm like, I'll go to Costco and get some stuff for him. And I came back and it was like a betrayal. Like I stabbed him in the heart. He goes, Costco was my thing. Why? Why did you go? Like I deprived him of his like weekend Costco trip. And I'm like, I saw sadness on his face. Like a middle-aged Pakistani man being sad. It's just a terrible thing to see.
Oh, well, your dad sounds sweet. I'd love to go with him at some point, and maybe he can whisper secrets into my ear about my discomfort and how I need to just be able to be more zen in the moment while shopping for giant items and fleece-lined pants. Let me ask you, Waj, because you just wrote a great piece over at the Medium, Wajahat Ali, the new MAGA hoods, the same old white supremacy, and I love it. Because you're basically saying in this piece, you say, I don't know about you, but I prefer to see hate and racism out in the open. I want it loud and clear, musky and odoriferous, blunt and direct without the superficial ornaments of dog whistles, palatable synonyms, snarky emojis, and subtle jokes. Give it to me raw, pure, organic, 100% natural without any additives or artificial coloring. Go ahead. What are you saying? What are you saying is happening?
Yeah, so that's the
so
opening.
Good. I loved it. I should have had you read it, but
that's the opening of the piece I just wrote. You know, on your show also, I've tried my best ever since Paul Gosar, a representative from Arizona, whose own family denounced him and begged Arizona voters to not vote for him. I'm not making that up. Yeah. Dentist Paul Gosar, friend of the Oath Keepers and racists, 2 years ago, he skipped his job. His job is to vote in the House. He skipped a vote for the stimulus and decided to be a keynote speaker at an annual white nationalist conference hosted by Nick Fuentes, who's in the news. And then just to be, you know, ever since he was criticized and people said, how can you speak at the conference of a white nationalist, an anti-Semite, a fascist, a racist, an Islamophobe, the next day, Paul Gosar has breakfast with Nick Fuentes and smiles at the camera, and the photo is shared. Now, since that moment, what I've been trying to do, and I've failed, is to warn our colleagues in the town, the ecosystem, the incestuous ecosystem of New York and DC, men and women who are paid a lot more money than you and me to be consistently wrong about everything, that Paul Gosar and Marjorie Taylor Greene represent the present and the future of the GOP. Take this seriously. Now, you fast forward to 2022, a couple of months ago, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar, and Wendy Rogers of Arizona Republicans spoke at Nick Fuentes' White Nationalist Conference, where Nick Fuentes, while Putin was invading Ukraine, had his crowd applaud Putin. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Paul Gosar doubled down, didn't apologize for it. They were gently criticized, but not renounced. And now you fast forward. And since then, I said, guys, pay attention to this. This is not your daddy's racist. This is a straight up dangerous white nationalist movement. Nick Fuentes and Kanye West, Mr. DEFCON 3 to the Jews, dined with Donald Trump. And it's been, I think, 5 days, Pete? And we're recording this on a Tuesday, and Republican leadership has made the choice not to criticize Trump and be silent. And Donald Trump, according to Hugo, forgetting his name, the Guardian journalist, you guys should follow him. He came up with the Guardian article where he said that aides repeatedly warned Donald Trump the last couple of days, begged him to renounce Nick Fuentes, but Donald Trump made the choice not to because he said it will alienate a part of his base. And then Kanye, Fuentes, and Milo Yiannopoulos, remember that guy, ladies and gentlemen, that hate monger? They were on Tim Pool, a right-wing podcaster, his podcast yesterday.
Hugo Lowell.
Yeah, Hugo Lowell. Yeah, a good journalist. Yeah, read his piece.
So they're I saw this, just a little bit of it. Kanye West every day now they're doing stuff. We'll get to Elon Musk, but there's this hall of villains that are really sucking a lot of attention towards them. And Trump meets with Nick Fuentes, who is hanging out with Kanye West, and now Milo is back. And what is this reality show that is playing out on multimedia podcasts and social media, and the former president and a guy who's running to be president again, meeting with him? What's happening right now? This is
the thing. It's not a show. And I understand the analogy, but this is This is scary stuff, y'all. This is, like you said, the presumptive 2024 Republican presidential nominee, Donald Trump, who, until I see DeSantis throwing him, he's still the king, folks. And he is validating and normalizing. I'm not just casually throwing the word white nationalist. Nick Fuentes openly makes Holocaust denial jokes, anti-black racism, anti-Muslim stuff, homophobic stuff. Just a couple of weeks ago, post-election results, openly said we should just take power. This guy is the leader of a movement of young brown shirts and fascists. And when the former president, is openly dining with him and validating him, and as is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I believe is the president and future of the Republican Party and actually is the real power of the House and the House majority, that's one of the two major political parties that is operating as a white nationalist outfit, folks. And these people in the last couple of months have threatened and intimidated poll workers, doctors, LGBTQ plus communities, law enforcement, elected officials, both Democrats and Republicans. And I'll give you an example of how this violence has been normalized. After one of these nuts was radicalized by QAnon and the deep state and all right-wing, MAGA conspiracy theories, I think his name was David DePape, and he went and attacked Paul Pelosi and Nancy Pelosi. Back in the day when Pete and I were young men, it didn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, you'd say, we denounce this. This is horrible. Thoughts and prayers to Paul Pelosi. You know what the Republican Party did? They followed up with a homophobic conspiracy to radicalize more people. That just happened. And Club Q, the shooting, happened in Colorado. And instead of saying, let's lower the temperature on our groomer conspiracy theories and QAnon, the next day, Tucker and Tim Pool and pretty much Jenna Ellis and all these folks doubled down on the hateful QAnon sex trafficking groomer conspiracies that puts a target not just on LGBTQ+, but on Boston Children's Hospital. Matt Walsh, Daily Wire, ever since he put them on the targets, they've been getting death threats because he's accusing them falsely of gender mutilation.
Yeah.
And so this is terrorism. This is what I'm trying to tell folks. And if you don't care about Muslims or Jews or black people or LGBTQ+, they also hate feminists. They also hate Republicans who criticize Trump, and they also hate liberals and liberal whites. So if you're paying attention, that's everyone who disagrees with them. And that's where we are, Pete. That's why this is a really scary time. And I'm, for one, this is why I've been trying every day. I've been writing articles about it. I've been tweeting about it. People can't sleep on this one. You can't both sides this one.
Do you think there are commentators in mainstream media, television or elsewhere, that are using the wrong rhetoric, should be using different language? Do you think that the Washington kind of press corps is asking the wrong questions, framing this inappropriately, not asking the right questions? They went after Kevin McCarthy today, trying to pin him down on it, and he got all mixed up. You see that?
Yeah, you got to use the words Christian nationalism, which was a motivating factor at the January 6th violent insurrection. You have to use the word white supremacy and white nationalism. You have to use the words anti-Semite. You have to use the words fascism. And I think Biden can straight up just say fascism. He tested the water with semi-fascism, and lo and behold, as us crazy darkies said, that if he doubles down in defense of democracy, it will be rewarded. Democrats were rewarded. When Nick Fuentes is openly telling you that just take power, when you see the violent insurrection, when you see Donald Trump, when you see the Proud Boys, Pete, what more do you need to see? I'll give you an example. We're still talking about Ilhan Omar's tweet from 3 years ago. Donald Trump and the GOP says anti-Semitic stuff every day. The House GOP still has their October 6th tweet, which says Kanye, Elon, and Trump. They still have it up, everyone. What more do you need to see? Don't you think in the back of the day you'd be like, let me just casually delete it? No, still have it up.
What do you make of the former disgraced president's former supporters, like his ambassador to Israel and other prominent right-wing Jewish supporters of Trump's, denouncing him over this? Is this too far? You mentioned that his own aides were telling him he's got to apologize, and he's like, it'll hurt my base. I mean,
they haven't denounced it. This is the thing. So Don Lemon did a really great
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. This was a former Trump aide who's a Jewish American man who said in this 10-minute, and let me just spend like a little bit of time on this about, it goes back to your question about what the media has to do. So this man whose name I'm forgetting, but I put him in, I linked it in my article, former.
I got it. I'll find it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Who is Jewish American and actually came here as a refugee. Don asked him to criticize Trump. And it took 10 minutes and he refused. And then he tried to do the whataboutism with Ilhan Omar and Don shut it down. What Don did was something that's very rare in American media. He asked follow-ups. He didn't relent. He shut down the BS and he tried to get a direct answer. And it's so rare because oftentimes our colleagues are exceedingly deferential to the GOP. You know this. I know this. We've been in this business a long time. You need to get them booked. You need to have access to power. And a lot of them are buddies. But Don didn't play that game for 10 minutes, folks. You guys should see this clip. He just did not relent. He was laser focused.
Yeah.
And this guy who knows better still refused to condemn Trump. Even David Friedman, who's an extremist, the former ambassador to Israel. I mean, if you think Netanyahu's an extremist, just look at Friedman's opinions.
Yeah.
Even he slightly tapped Trump, but didn't criticize him.
He said to Trump, "This is not who you are," or something like that.
But this is who he is. Trump has been anti-Semitic for the last forever, but no one's done anything because we're concentrating on Ilhan Omar. And so now New York Times came out with a piece today that some Jewish lawmakers are turning away from Trump, or some Jewish donors are. And again, I'll believe it when I see it. They're going to condone it because he's still the horse they have to ride until DeSantis, or if DeSantis throws him. I think DeSantis is a wet noodle. I think Trump will eat him alive, but let's see. And DeSantis, he's falling. Look, DeSantis hadn't said a word because he realizes, like Marjorie Taylor, like Trump, oh shit, this is part of my base. So if you think DeSantis is going to be any better, he'll just be a little bit more refined. This is why this is so dangerous, Pete.
Yeah, it is really dangerous as we're watching it happen. And, you know, you mentioned some of the things that have transpired over the past couple of weeks and since the election. But what do you make, because we haven't talked since the midterm election, of the outcomes in terms of what we've heard about the demographics of who voted for who and why it mattered, and the historicness, is that what I'm trying to say, of this election outcome? What do you think it means? Because I think it's a really good outcome.
I agree with you. I think it's one of those situations where I know you could look at it and say, we lost the House and it's 50-50. You know, we don't know what's going to happen. It might be 51-49. Let's see. Step back. Historically, if you look at the trend, the only question we should have been asking is, how big will the red wave be? Obama lost more than 60 seats. Clinton lost more than 50. Yeah. Trump lost 40. Not favorable economic conditions for Joe Biden. Unfortunately, gas prices, inflation, not his fault. It is what it is. Instead, Republicans barely kept the House due to gerrymandering. Very important. People always mistake that. Without gerrymandering, they would have even lost the House.
Yep, true.
And we don't know what's going to happen in Georgia. I pray to God enough Georgians find common sense, but as of last polling, it's tied. But the fact that at the very least, and they need that 51st seat, they'll make life much better and easier. We could talk about why. But I was very encouraged, Pete. Like, independents showed out, young people who kind of stay away showed out, a multicultural coalition showed up, because it seems abortion rights and defending democracy, as I have been saying for months, are kitchen table issues, Pete. The average Americans who live in the heartland and drink real coffee and real diners and wear real plaid shirts and wear Kirkland from Costco care about these issues. And when Democrats or anyone fights for these issues, they respond accordingly. Voila. So I with all that being said, I think it was very hopeful. I was like, damn, man, we still got a fight in us. But it was very encouraging to me.
Yeah, there's two ways of looking at politics. It's like, what can you do? What can you give the people who have elected you? Can you do what they want you to do? Why they elected you? And Democrats can take credit for actually doing a lot of things, certainly at every level this past cycle. But you also have to look at it, and I think this is what I wanted to ask you about, what did the other side do for themselves? And what they did for themselves is they became really, really extreme, like beyond anything.
It ain't your daddy's or my daddy's Republican Party, man.
So in so many ways. And so a lot of folks are saying, you know what? There are never going to be enough Americans that are going to buy that kind of crazy. What do you think of that?
For now, But it's one of those things where these folks, let me put it this way. Donald Trump, I think we could say objectively, was a terrible president. Didn't do that good of a job. And okay, I'll give some people credit. They're like, both sides. Donald Trump, he was great in Home Alone 2. I read Art of the Deal. Let's give him a vote. Let's see. Maybe he'll shake shit up. All right. Absolute failure. So what happens in 2020? 11 million more people voted for Donald Trump. So it's and Webster's Dictionary's word of the year was gaslighting. That's the word they chose.
Yeah.
And so don't underestimate cynicism, apathy, disinformation, conspiracy theories, racism, xenophobia, hate that can be marshaled by a party, especially during some tumultuous times, to get just enough votes. Look what happened in Brexit. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know, folks, if you've been paying attention, but apparently a poll came out and a lot of Britons are like, yeah, about that Brexit. That was a bad idea.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. Well,
yeah.
I've been wondering at what point it would be appropriate to ask the people who live there and most affected by it what they think of it now.
We came out with the word also that they're like, oops. And you sit there and you go, like, you're watching Brexit happen. And my analogy of Brexit, much like my analogy of Trump, is the following. You can see a bunch of angry, folks, many of them whites, let's be honest, but let's say just a couple of, let's put a Latino and an Asian in there also. And they're in a car and they're dousing themselves with gasoline. And you're like, wait, what are you doing? It goes, I'm going to show you. I'm going to punch you in the face. And then they start punching each other in the face. They're like, hey, can you stop that? We're going to make America great again. We're going to make Great Britain great again. We're going to show you, you darkies, go back to where you come from. And then they take the car and they go 65 miles per hour, and not wearing a seatbelt. And then you try to warn them that they're going to drive into a brick wall. And like, shut up. We're going to show you. We're going to make America great again. And then they friggin' go into the wall and half of them are sticking out the window. They're like, do you need help? Like, F you. We're going to show you. And then you're like, wait, let me come over with bandages. And they're like, no, we have a lighter. Does anyone have a lighter? And then they just burn themselves on fire and the car blows up. That's how I saw Brexit. And that's how I see MAGA ultimately. But with the MAGA, what's going to happen is the fire is going to spread and kill a lot of innocents before it self-immolates them. And that's what you're seeing with Brexit. That's what you're seeing with MAGA. But my fear is, with the system gamed as it is, Pete, and we know this, right? Gerrymandering, voter suppression, electoral college, rigged judiciary, rigged Supreme Court.
Yeah.
They just need enough, Pete. They don't need the majority. They know that. They just need enough. And that's what's scary.
I wanted to ask you one more question, which is about how you feel, where you come down. You're a lawyer, but you pay attention to a lot of the legal analysts. You hang out with the Mary Trumps and all them over there. You hear the best legal analysis. What is your opinion, having heard all that, with Merrick Garland appointing a guy who looks like one of the commanders from Gilead and The Handmaid's Tale? He looks exactly like Joseph Fiennes' character, which
he does, man. He does.
I feel is both good and bad. I mean, if he's got the same kind of, ability to get things done in a good way. What are your thoughts on the appointment of a special counsel, Jack Smith?
And even has that name, like an old school
Paul Ryan.
Yeah.
A real Boy Scout.
Gun smoke, like an old school dragnet detective, right? That smokes a cigar and smells like
Jack Smith here.
Jack Smith, yeah, you can smell his whiskey and his nicotine from the first floor. And you can hear him take off his fedora.
He's like, basically Jack Smith, yeah. Columbo. I don't know how we watered him down to basically being Columbo, but he is the new special counsel. What are your thoughts?
Look, I'm a pragmatist. I don't think Donald Trump and his powerful friends will spend a day in jail. Not one. The best we can hope for is they'll get indicted. Nothing's going to happen to them. Quote George Carlin, it's a big club and you ain't in it. And the reason why I know nothing's going to happen to him is this dude's been criming as president for the past 7 years. We have it on tape for voting fraud in Georgia. We got open fraud committed as a businessman in New York. We have the violent insurrection. The dude literally stole national security documents, lied to the FBI about it. Nothing happened to him. I don't think anything's going to happen to him. I think everyone said, Robert Mueller, he's going to come in. Nothing happened to him. I think they're just going to punt this until he becomes irrelevant. Maybe they'll indict him. That'll be the win. And then he'll probably die a happy death sitting on a toilet, eating a Big Mac and scrolling through Twitter. That's what I think is going to happen.
There you have it. And A lot of other people obviously disagree with you. They think Jack Smith is going to bring the hammer down.
Do you believe it? I thought Merrick Garland was going to bring the hammer down. I thought Robert Mueller was going to bring the hammer down.
I don't know.
I don't buy it, bro.
My analysis on it is...
Look, I would love to be wrong, but prove me wrong. I give you the last 7 years. That's my evidence.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was a big Mueller. I was sure Mueller was going to really make a huge difference. And Trump, by the way, obliterated him the same way he did Jeb Bush on that stage. Just every day, he's like, this old motherfucker, you know, just constantly insulting Mueller and now doing the same thing to this guy, Jack Smith, and everybody related to him. Like, he's so brazen, just going after him.
Well, that's what Elon Musk is doing against Apple. It's a right-wing fascist intimidation tool that works.
Yeah.
It's what in the media we've experienced this. What do they call it? Working the refs. It's affirmative action for conservatives because they always complain that everything is biased. And so these institutions, in order to preserve their reputation as being impartial, they always bend the knee to these bad faith actors. That's why I always use the analogy of Charlie Brown. We're Charlie Brown, they're Lucy. And we always get screwed. And that's why I think Jack Smith will fail, because Robert Mueller, like Jack Smith, like Merrick Garland, at the end of the day is what? An institutionalist. Which is why Merrick Garland even asked Jack Smith to do it, because he didn't want to give the aura of bias.
Right.
And that's why Donald Trump is running. He's the first person to run for president to avoid criminal liability. And it'll work.
We will see. And I thank you so much for joining me. I'll let you go. I really appreciate it, buddy. Awesome as always to talk to you.
Man.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Wajahat Ali. Go listen to him with Danielle Moody on Democracy-ish. Read him at the Daily Beast and Medium. Follow him on Twitter and everywhere else. Let him know that you heard him. Let him know that you heard him right here on this show on Stand Up, as I hope you'll do with all of our guests, including my next guest, who is a former federal prosecutor for 30 years. You know him, you love him. You're hopefully subscribed to his YouTube channel and his Patreon, and you can see him on MSNBC regularly, where he's a legal analyst. He's become a really good friend of mine, and I was very happy to catch up with him because there was a lot to talk about with the great Glenn Kirschner, who you can follow on Twitter at Glenn Kirschner2. So let's get to it. Time for the Kirschner Report.
Good to see you, Pete.
What did you get? You just tweeted out that Justice Matters subscribers, supporters of yours, they sent you a nice necktie and even cufflinks. Is that what you got? They send you gifts.
The Team Justice is the best. Yeah. You know, I'm sitting here in my little office in Leesburg, Virginia, and the FedEx guy knocks on the door with a couple of packages, and that happens often. And things just show up from people who are supportive of the mission, you know, Justice Matters. And, you know, it's very heartwarming.
I used to get a lot of gifts. I haven't gotten, I mean, I get things that are basically poking fun of me. Karen Madison, who's a longtime listener, made a joke about me because I said I was like Batman. She said I'm like Robin, and then sent me a Robin costume. Those are the types of gifts I get. Jokes.
I'd like to see you in a Robin costume, oddly enough.
Well, I'll be right back, sir. All right. Lots to talk with you about, of course. I haven't talked to you in a bit. You've been doing great work, of course, on YouTube, on social media. I see you're working with Brian Tyler Cohen, which is great. And, of course, on MSNBC. So I want to touch on a few different things that you've talked about. But first, this Jack Smith guy, he's a special counsel. He's been appointed by Merrick Garland, and he's already being attacked by Donald Trump. He looks intimidating. And I want to know what your thoughts are. You shared them in a lot of places, but briefly on Jack Smith, he's got a tough name, a tough face. I think he's going to indict Trump. That's what I'm saying, just on his look.
Yeah. So first of all, you know, we're suffering from hero fatigue.
Yes.
Right. We thought Bob Mueller was going to be the man. Right. I think Bill Barr kind of blocked him. We thought Merrick Garland was going to be the man. I still maintain Garland is a good man. It's just that I think he lost his prosecutorial chops because he was a prosecutor way back in the day, and he was a heck of a prosecutor. And then he was a judge for a quarter of a century, and it feels like he was running the Department of Justice like a judge's chambers more than a hardcore, aggressive prosecutor's office. Now, Jack Smith, I don't know personally, but I had some homicide prosecutors who left my section and my office and went down the street to Main Justice and worked for him when he was the head of the public integrity section. And these are people whose opinions I take to the bank. and they're like, okay, you want a without fear or favor kind of prosecutor. You want somebody who's fearless. You want somebody who doesn't shy away from tough, politically charged cases. This is the right guy.
Well, you say without fear or favor, but by the way, I think everybody knows somebody named Jack Smith. If they know 10 people, they know somebody with that name. It's the most common American name. But you say without fear or favor. His wife certainly does seem to favor Democrats. He's donated to Democrats. She helped produce Michelle Obama. I'm sure she's whispering in Jack Smith's ear at night.
Yeah, and then should we talk to Ginny Thomas? No, that would be whataboutism, so I'm not going to do that.
Don't do whataboutism.
But here's what I'm going to say, Pete. Do you think we should have a rule in place that every prosecutor, and there are thousands of them out there, if their spouse has a political ideology or is involved in political activities or donates a couple of $100 to the candidate of his or her choice, then somehow that prosecutor cannot prosecute a Republican, cannot prosecute a Democrat, because you're going to be more favorably inclined to Democrats. So I guess what? You can only prosecute independents. That is an asinine rule and an asinine complaint, not for you to make, but for people to make. That does not disqualify Jack Smith because his spouse has some political ideology or activity.
Well, there's concern about political optics. Merrick Garland even said that in his press release announcement. He's like, Trump's running and Joe Biden looks like he's going to run. And I don't want people to think that I'm putting my finger on the scale because I'm a political appointee. So here comes Jack Smith. But it's kind of a ridiculous notion, Glenn, because you know better than I do that Republicans don't need any reason to say that you're biased. They will just go after you no matter who you are. If Glenn Kirschner walked by a playground, they'd call him a groomer because he was near children. It doesn't matter is the point. So why even try to look kind of objective is the word I was looking for, or not favorable?
This is all form over substance. Merrick Garland could have raised Mother Teresa from the dead and they would be complaining, look at how she's washing people's feet. She's feeding the hungry. Are you kidding me? She's an angry Democrat.
I want to see her birth certificate.
Yeah. And her death certificate. Let's get them both.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much that criticism matters. But Jack Smith, how long does he have? Talk to me about timelines with both the J6 committee now that Republicans are taking over the House. So that's going to be over. I think I saw in one of your videos you said January 3rd. But talk to me about timelines for this investigation as well as the congressional investigation led by both Republicans and Democrats in the House. What do we need to know about the dates, the due dates on things?
So there really are no due dates when it comes to a special counsel. Let's look to the last special counsel, Bob Mueller. I'm not going to talk about Durham because that was actually a witch hunt, ironically.
Yeah.
And he couldn't even find any witches. But Bob Mueller, he was appointed and it took him about 22 months to do his work. But he had to start from scratch. He had to assemble a team of FBI agents, prosecutors. He had to stand up a support staff, and then he had to initiate an investigation. Jack Smith's mandate is you step into these two ongoing investigations that have been up and running for a very long time. The insurrection investigation has been up and running a little longer. The Mar-a-Lago classified documents theft and unlawful concealment investigation, that is of more recent vintage. And then what does Jack Smith do? He apparently absorbs everything he needs to absorb, and he is putting pen to paper on Thanksgiving Day to file a reply to some of what Donald Trump's lawyers said in the special master case, which I have right here. It's one paragraph. And he said, yeah, you know what? The points you just made with the court, you are incorrect. None of that is true here. Those are quotes. And he tore them a new one, legally speaking. This is what Jack Smith is about. Not lots of, pleasant euphemisms and gentle language. Opposing counsel may misapprehend the gravamen of, no, you're wrong. Get out of here, and now let me do my business. I'm telling you, that's why I say he's a real without fear or favor kind of guy. There's no deadline on special counsel's work the way there is on the J6 committee.
Nobody's covered either of these investigations from a legal standpoint better than you have at your YouTube channel and elsewhere. And so, including you were in the courtroom. Let's talk about one of these cases as it relates to Stewart Rhodes and seditious conspiracy, which apparently is like a Civil War era thing and hasn't been used. You were there in the courtroom. And may I say, that I want to be the first brave person to say, you look like Stuart Rhodes. If only you wore an eye patch. Did you ever consider wearing an eye patch while you sat there and watched him as a way to ridicule him, or are you better than that?
No, but I may have observed in my juvenile sort of way that even after he shot his own eye out as a firearms safety instructor, you can't make that up. Apparently, he still has perfect 20 vision. So he's got that going for him.
Well, the truth is, though, we can ridicule him. Dude went to like an Ivy League school. Dude is pretty smart. Dude made some pretty bad choices and decisions. Dude is now found guilty of seditious conspiracy, whatever the hell that is.
So let me hit some of the highlights of his testimony. I sat in trial all 7 weeks and watched it. First of all, seditious conspiracy is when two or more people get together and agree to try to violently overthrow the government or try to violently interfere with the execution of the laws of the United States, which is precisely what they did when they tried to stop the certification. I mean, to the letter, they committed the crime of seditious conspiracy, a 20-year offense, and they were convicted of other counts as well. So here is Elmer. Don't call him Stuart because his name is Elmer.
His name is Elmer? I didn't know that. No.
His name is Elmer Stuart Rhodes. And here's the thing, Pete. I give him 1 point for the first answer he gave when his lawyer was questioning him. And then I take away a gazillion points for all of the lies he told thereafter.
Okay.
But here was the opening salvo. His lawyer puts him on the stand. Can you please state your name, sir? Elmer Stuart Rhodes. But I go by Stuart for obvious reasons. 1 point. 1 point. And then he started to lie his ass off. It was brutal. So first of all, here's what he says. Just let me hit a couple of the highlights.
Sure.
He said, the 2020 presidential election was, quote, unlawful and unconstitutional. And then the disbarred Yale lawyer turned to the jury and said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm a constitutional expert. So everything else flowed from his determination. Who anointed him arbiter of the constitutionality of presidential elections remains a mystery, but everything else flowed from that. So his premise was, because he had decided it was an unconstitutional election, he gets to decide that he can march in, stop the certification of Joe Biden's win, and doing it makes him a patriot, not a traitor. And I'm telling you, the jury, I think, recoiled from him in horror. Here is some of the other absurd testimony he gave. The prosecutor was introducing text message after text message after text message. We've got to overthrow the government. There's going to be blood. There's going to be violence. I don't care if Donald Trump fails to implement or invoke the Insurrection Act. The Oath Keepers will take matters into our own hands if we have to, blah, blah, blah. So then after January 6th, when they realized they were, first of all, they didn't accomplish their goal. And second of all, now the authorities are hot on their trail. He starts sending messages to his fellow Oath Keepers. Listen, keep your mouth shut. People are going to be coming to you. They're going to be asking you what happened. Keep your mouth shut. Don't talk. Shut the F up. And then in the next message, in a string of 3 or 4 messages to the Oath Keepers, he said, in case I have to be more explicit, delete all of your incriminating comments. Delete all comments that might incriminate your fellow Oath Keepers or the Oath Keepers organization. On the stand, he said, oh, those. Yeah, I did all the other texts, but those that I'm telling people to delete their incriminating comments. My girlfriend took my phone away from me, pretended to be me, and started texting.
He said that
on the stand.
And the jury
you could see the jurors, like the eye strain from the eyes rolling up here. It was infuriating, and he thought he was the smartest guy in the room, and he thought he was going to get away with it.
These guys that throw their wives under the table to get away with things. I just watched the Jerry Falwell documentary. Somehow scapegoating their wives and girlfriends. It's just not. It's I guess unsurprising. All right, so he's now found guilty of seditious conspiracy, which is a pretty big deal. He's going to do serious time, and others as well that were with him were also convicted, and that's a really big deal. You're saying for a lot of reasons, and you could tell me why it's a big deal as you shift into talking about the other case that old Jack Smith is going to be looking into, which you're telling me Donald Trump just admitted to just gave that Jack Smith more evidence on the documents, the classified documents of Mar-a-Lago case. So what does Jack Smith's guilt mean for justice and then turn and pivot to Mar-a-Lago's treasure trove of CIA files.
So Elmer and his co-defendants, all of whom were convicted, but of some different charges. Here's what it means. It means a couple of things. One, it means that everybody else who is pending a seditious conspiracy trial, because remember, we only tried half of the Oath Keepers. We still are going against the other half in a future trial. The Proud Boys are also indicted pending a seditious conspiracy trial. So what it means is I don't know that they're going to be inclined to roll the dice, because the prosecutors have just proved that their evidence meets that high bar, that high burden of being able to prove a seditious conspiracy, the attempted violent overthrow of the government. So I have a feeling one of the effects of these convictions will be other defendants will be coming forward wanting to plead guilty, and maybe even plead guilty with cooperation, so we can begin to build our way up the criminal food chain. Because who were the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers plugged into directly? Mike Flynn, Roger Stone, probably not Donald Trump. So, but, you know, Stone and Flynn and the Bannons and the Giulianis, these guys are building blocks to Donald Trump. So this is really important for that reason. And before I move on to Jack Smith, the other reason this is important is because these defendants all sort of defended one way or another on we're patriots because the election was rigged, it was stolen, it was fraudulent. And the jury, by its verdict, really did announce that, no, you weren't patriots. Right. You were traitors. The rigged election thing doesn't fly. And I think that has some atmospheric benefit, even if it's not going to persuade many of Donald Trump's hardcore supporters. So a lot of good came out of these verdicts. Now, with respect to Jack Smith, I mean, look, I think he will probably, if I had to bet which case he'll indict first, and he will indict people. There's no doubt in my mind he will indict people. It will probably be the Mar-a-Lago documents case, because, as you say, Pete, Donald Trump just posted on his third-rate social media platform, which it shouldn't be Truth Social, it should be Confession Social. He actually posted a confession. He's so desperate to try to deflect, and he can see that the evidence is mounting against him, that he actually said, I took the documents from the White House more openly and more transparently than other presidents. You know what he just did? He just delivered evidence to Jack Smith that Jack Smith would have had to have proved. And here's what the evidence is. Donald Trump could have said, you think I packed up boxes? Look at these hands. You think I packed up boxes at the White House? Other people were throwing all kinds of stuff in boxes, moving it down to Mar-a-Lago, unbeknownst to me. What did he do? He took away the need for Jack Smith to prove that it was knowing and intentional on Donald Trump's part, because Donald Trump admitted it. And he admitted a second thing. He said, what about Hillary Clinton, who, after she was subpoenaed by Congress for her emails, deleted them, didn't give them over? What is that? That is an implicit admission that after Donald Trump, was subpoenaed for the documents that I stole from the White House, I didn't give them over. This is evidentiary gold that Donald Trump is delivering to special counsel.
Yeah, well, so we'll see what happens. What do you think the timeline is on Jack Smith bringing indictments?
By March, you're going to see an indictment. That I've been wrong before, and I'll be wrong again. But I'm thinking, spring is indicting season.
Spring is. Did you drop a lot of indictments during the springtime from your experience?
Yeah, it's a lovely time. Spring is in the air, and accountability is everywhere.
Will there be accountability for Mike Pence? You've been railing on this good man. You have been talking a lot about his service to our country and his lack of willingness to testify to, I guess, Congress and the J6 committee. But you're saying that this good man is going to be dragged in front of Jack Smith. Is that what a grand jury that he has put together? Why are you so harsh against this great patriot?
Yeah, he's a very pious man. He will see the inside of a federal grand jury hearing room. There's no two ways about it. I think when he went on record as saying that Congress is not entitled to my testimony, when we realize, Pete, that Congress is investigating the insurrection so they can legislate and try to prevent it from ever happening again? Mike Pence said, I will not give you some of what is the most relevant information on that legislative mission. You're not entitled to it. In other words, the American people be damned. The sanctity of the peaceful transfer of power be damned. I will not give you my testimony about the pressure campaign Donald Trump leveled against me to try to get me to violate the law, the Electoral Count Act. But I will put it in my book, and I will go on Fox News and talk about it.
So he's definitely going to have to. He doesn't have to say anything, though. He's gonna say that he had some kind of executive protection or something, and he doesn't legally have to say anything. He can plead the fifth.
Here's what happens. You can close. He said infamously, "I'm closing the door on congressional testimony."
Right.
You can't close the door on federal grand jury testimony in a criminal investigation. You must go in, and first of all, anything you said in your book and anything you said on air, you have waived any claim of executive privilege because you've already said it. And then if he wants to try, Pete, to invoke executive privilege on stuff that he hasn't yet disclosed, let him do it. Because the J6 committee doesn't have a mechanism to force people to testify, but the federal prosecutors do.
Right.
They walk to the chief judge's closed courtroom. Beryl Howell, she don't play. She will hear Mike Pence. She will shoot down his arguments, and she will order him into the grand jury to testify.
Final thought on former President Trump inviting Kanye West, a noted anti-Semite, he found someone who's more anti-Semitic than him, a 24-year-old boy named Nick Fuentes, and they're hanging out with Milo, and Elon Musk is getting in the mix. What are your thoughts on all that happened over Thanksgiving week and how far down we've gotten? There isn't anybody worse than this group of people.
No, and a man will be known by the company he keeps. And that is, Donald Trump is a racist, an anti-Semite, a misogynist. He's xenophobic. He is a hateful, small, narcissistic man. And I know we've been waiting for justice forever, Pete, but it's going to catch up with him.
Yeah. I'm glad he can go look on Twitter and see what we're writing about him. I guess he could always do that, but.
Yeah, I don't know. Can I ask you, are you going to leave Twitter? Are you going to stay on Twitter?
No, I'm not leaving. I'm practical and pragmatic about it. If there were some other better place, it's not like I'm principled about who runs my social media network, much less even, is the CEO of our automobile manufacturer. It's hard to live your life that way, or else you would never, you wouldn't be able to support anything in this capitalistic country. But I think I got to stay for obvious reasons. It still seems to be functioning decently for me. I'm still getting a lot of the good things out of it. What are you doing? You're not leaving, are you? You're huge on Twitter. If you left, you would probably lose a certain segment of people who want to see what you have to say.
Well, my thing is no Team Justice member left behind, and I've got hundreds of thousands of them on Twitter, so I'm not leaving until the last one is out.
I hope a Team Justice member says, you left me behind, and then you have to drive all the way across the country to pick them up.
I'll do it twice.
In the back of some other Team Justice's van. Thank you very much for talking to me, as always, buddy. I love you. I appreciate you.
Love you back, Pete.
All right, man.
All right, there he goes, Glenn Kirschner, Glenn Kirschner 2. Go follow him there on the Twitter and listen to him, watch him on the YouTube Justice Matters channel, and just love him. Love talking to him. Always interesting. I always learn a lot. And I'm very happy that he joined me today, as well as Wajahat Ali, and most importantly, you, because I wouldn't be doing it without you. I love doing this show every day. Can't do it without your support. Please sign up for a subscription. Hopefully, I will see you tonight at the Hangout. If you are a subscriber with historian Kenneth C. Davis, I'll tell my story about, hopefully, I will get to see this great civil rights leader talk, and then I can tell you who it was. We can't tell because we don't want people to keep canceling this talk. It's been a whole thing. Anyway, very excited. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to hearing from you and seeing you tonight, along with Kenneth C. Davis is going to join us and give away some books. Also, the Hangout on Saturday morning. Don't miss that for the World Cup watch party. I'll be hosting that again. And that's it. That's all I've got for you. Thank you very much for listening today. John Carroll, take us away, brother.
To let in some light, you gotta stand up stand up. You gotta stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. So get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. And even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.